done.
And we're gonna start letting attendees in.
Okay. Hello. All right, I show the time is 5:30 on September 3rd, 2020. Finally got that on the front end of the tape. At this time, I'd call our meeting to order. Karen,
Fisher,
here.
Mays,
Here.
Sling,
Here.
Handy,
Here.
Crowell,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Crab,
Here.
All right, we have our quorum. In fact, everyone is here. Next item is 1B, agenda adoption. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second,
I can second that.
any discussion? Karen?
Mays,
Yes.
Sling,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes. All right, 1C is district vision and mission. Do I have any volunteers?
I will, Gary.
Okay, Brett?
And Sally Polk will learn, lead, live, success for college, career, and civic life. Engage students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Thank you. Our next item is 1D, public comments. We'll wait some while people can make comments through Zoom, I think also YouTube. And there's a way to submit a written comment, and I think our board secretary, Kevin Bacom, might be out there. Kevin, have you received any comments?
No.
Okay. No comments received that way. We'll wait a few moments here and see if anybody has any comments to address to the board. I will say we received lots of emails, and board members do receive those and read those. We'll wait about a minute here. Any public comments received or?
There was one just submitted.
Okay.
You want me to read it?
You want to read it, Chad?
I don't.
Oh, you don't have access? Okay, Jason?
It's from Shannon addressed to Tom May during the last board meeting at the 1 hour 39-minute 3-second mark. You stated, if I'm high risk, I don't go to school. You saying this and claiming to be concerned about the mental health of all students, which includes those with chronic conditions of discipline, you completely disregard the mental health of an entire group of students in our district. Why would you want to further isolate students that are more likely to already have mental health issues? She presents an article through a hyperlink, and this says regarding that article, the researchers found that children with chronic health conditions were approximately twice as likely to end and 13 who present with a mental health disorder, then the control group of children reported by their mothers to be healthy, no problems. At age 15, children with chronic health problems were 60% more likely to present with such disorders. I believe hybrid 2 is a good compromise for all the students.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, at this time, we'll close the public comments. The next item on the agenda is consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Thank you, Adam. Lori? Any discussion about that?
I assume people are adjusting where they're going to school based on where school's open.
Yeah, it
Different-
continues.
Okay.
Yep.
I did see my own doctor on the list as a volunteer for volleyball. That's pretty cool to have a MD physician as volunteer coach. Any other comments or questions about the consent agenda? Karen?
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
All right. Roman numeral 2 is old and new business. First item is A, SRO Law Enforcement Agreement 2020-2021.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks, Chad. We're waiting a moment to connect our presenter on this agenda item.
Just if you guys have questions.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand that. Are there
Um,
any questions about it?
It's just a similar agreement as years past? Any major changes to the agreement?
Yeah, there are a couple and maybe I'll let Kevin speak to that if you.
Yep. There are a few changes due to the pandemic and the contingency planning for the pandemic. So we're still staying at the 75% for the 2 SRO officers. And we did put a couple things in there to help if the district were to happen to go into remote learning at certain sites, junior and high school, for a certain number of days, that being 15, we'd ask for a credit back of those costs or half those daily costs back to the school district. And those are the major changes that occurred within this particular agreement.
I know this took some time to get to. Kevin, are you satisfied with where we ended with it?
It's a compromise.
Okay, fair enough. Good answer. Any other questions or comments?
No, I would assume, Mr. Pettit, you're good with everything. Everything's going good with between the Permar versus law enforcement connection.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some adjustments. You know, the SRO that was at the junior high last year is now at the high school, doing a great job. You know, we've had a couple of other adjustments with our in-house campus monitor staff versus the, contracted Permar staff. So there's been some moving parts from last year to this year, but yeah, I'm more than happy with the way things are going.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else? All right, Karen?
Handy,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Okay, next item is 2B, supplemental disinfecting services.
Move to approve.
Second.
That you, Adam, on the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, questions, comments?
Any idea how long they expect this monthly service to continue?
We have a 4-month minimum as a contract-based agreement with them. Depending on, what happens with health conditions, we can extend that month to month, but there's also a clause for a 30-day notice to get out.
I saw them, I can't seem to find mine, but I saw somewhere that they are doing this for other school districts.
Yes, there are a couple other school districts within the metro area than which they've already provided services for. For us, as they ramp up their employees side, this wouldn't take place for us until probably 2.5 to 3 weeks.
Okay,
Kevin, I noticed in the memo that the service is Sunday through Thursday, which makes sense because it's the night before school. If there's something that goes on in the school over the weekend, is there anybody that comes in, or is there a way to clean after whatever group might have used a part of the building?
That could be something we could do with Heritage Group, but we also have our employees in which we've been trying to fill those spots in as well.
Okay.
And I think if Dr. Belger's on the
Okay,
line,
thank you.
we're just trying to fill those gaps with the people we have as well.
Right, okay.
I assume that as far as you know, our people view this as a help, not a problem or.
Yeah, this is an on top of a supplemental service to make sure people are safe, staff and students in our buildings.
So if we're able to fill some of the vacant hours, is the idea that we would do this for a period of 4 months and then potentially we would be able to do the same service in-house?
Correct.
Okay.
And I did have a discussion with the Heritage Group this afternoon, because there could be some buildings that are in different positions than other buildings when it comes to staffing and the people available. To see if there was some flexibility. For example, if we had 2 of our schools that are staffed full enough to be able to do cleaning ourselves, maybe they're able to give us some sort of adjustment back, not having to do those particular schools. So as long as this initial agreement is in place, they're willing to kind of talk and talk through those certain particular instances.
Are these electrostatic sprayers something, is that something we have or they supply or?
We have some of those ourselves. They have a direct line to vendors for those items. In some of the school districts in which they're working with, they didn't have any of those. So we have our set. They will be working with their set of items. There was a small cost reduction to use our equipment and our chemicals. It just didn't make sense because we need to maintain and retain those products and equipment as well for us.
Okay, good.
Kevin, I know there's no guarantee, but have the other districts been successful in getting some reimbursement for this?
I haven't heard of any district getting reimbursed. Oh, excuse me, through FEMA.
Yes.
I'm not aware of any school district has been reimbursed at all through FEMA for any costs. That process is a bit cumbersome. But I know they have been accepted. A couple claims from school districts have been accepted by FEMA.
Okay.
All right, Karen?
Crow,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
All right, that concludes the business meeting portion of our meeting. Now we're on to non-action items, things that are just discussed, topics for discussion. First item is item A, referendum update.
Glad to talk about the referendum update today. The vote is to Tuesday, September 8th, next Tuesday. And if you haven't seen the video, let's go ahead and show that video now, the one that we created here. Thank you, Jason. I wasn't getting any audio on my side. Hopefully the board and the other
We can
videos
hear
were saying that. Okay,
Yep.
good. So that's one of the things we've done since the last time we met last. Ms. Christensen has been hard at work doing some other things for the school, for the district and the referendum. Last Thursday, there was an ad in the Altoona Living magazine. Yesterday, we put an ad in the Altoona Herald. We sent out just short of 900 direct mailings to the staff that live in the community, within SE Polk community, and also some of the board members here. We plan to, and hopefully those mailings should be at households either tomorrow or Saturday, so just in time for the vote.
It came today.
Football, yeah, you got yours today.
Yep.
Great. Football Friday, we're going to show that video, hopefully with sound on the stadium board during halftime. We'll also show it during the live stream. Mr. Campbell has made arrangements with the live stream company to play that during the halftime show as well. And then we've been answering questions from the Rams Rising committee members. And speaking of Rams Rising, they've been hard at work as well. They completed their absentee vote ballot request forms to those individuals. They've been reaching out to the activity and the athletic parent groups. They're direct texting their friends. They're keeping that Rams Rising page active. And one of the Rams Rising committee members, Beth Van Ryswick, has just created a cartoon video scribe similar to the one that we had for Pepple. And I think if it's not posted yet, it will be posted to the Rams Rising committee, their Facebook page. So all this all lines up to everything pushing forward for the September 8th vote. And hopefully we are reaching our market group of the people we want to reach. And we'll have a favorable outcome on Tuesday.
How soon do we know the results? I mean, did they posted somewhere or?
Those votes are perpetual once live within the Secretary of State's website. And also from the last vote, because I remember being in the House, it was posted, it was always being run on TV as well. I remember stepping outside of the House last year when Pepple ran and yelling at Mattia, who lived down the street, in celebration.
Gary, I think it's on the Polk County election headquarters
Okay.
too. Usually by 8:30 or so.
Okay,
Kevin, is it 51% or is it 60? What? I can't.
60% plus one.
60% plus. Okay.
Correct. We have a great community. When Pepple passed, it passed at an 83% vote. With these times, it's hard to get a gauge. You get a little nervous because you don't hear a lot of feedback now just because of the environment we're in. But the committee members have been great in responding to some of the postings and some of the emails. Dr. Lupnick has done that as well, and Ms. Christensen has done it as well. So we're hoping that not very much talk means that's good. But it's a little anxious here, waiting for the vote and waiting for the results in on Tuesday.
Make sure you share when it comes up on your Facebook wall. Just share whenever you see that Rams Rising referendum, so it continues to spread and stays up there.
Kevin, I asked this last update, but what are the negatives that are being, I see some on Facebook. Obviously COVID has some interest in it because, they don't want to pay full taxes because they're not going to school full time and those type of things. Are we hearing a lot of that, just other than what I see?
I did answer some initial questions about how this doesn't raise taxes by doing so, and hopefully we've addressed that issues. The multi-purpose stadium was another issue that's come up.
I've seen that one.
Maybe from the effort, trying to make comparisons to other school districts, but every school district's a little bit different in what those costs entail. So for us, based on our needs and what we needed to have happen with the multi-purpose stadium and the other projects, I provided a cost breakdown or a percentage of cost breakdown by the certain types of activity groups, student activities, instructional, and then more management and operations side. So hopefully that has reached the audience that have asked those questions. But as far as negative, not really negative. I hate focusing on just on one project within that, because the bond issue, the bond referendum is for all the projects. If we are stuck on one project and that's the one project we're stuck on, not voting for it really it dissuades those other projects. It means we're not supporting those other projects with
Yeah.
the referendum. So
And I would agree. And I saw one of the committee members made a very good point that what you just said is the stadium seemed to be a hot topic, which, and COVID is obviously, I mean, that's obviously right in front of us. So we kind of focus a lot on that. But I mean, I guess I'll just say, you know, hopefully that people will look past the short term of what we have going on here and look at the future, because we need these buildings, facilities, just, you know, to plan for that. And knowing that the costs will always go up. And I think Ms. Slings always mentions this about the football facility. And they tried to do this before I was even on the board back in 2000. Yeah. And
We've been trying to
costs
do this.
obviously go up. So hopefully those that are in doubt that are listening tonight, hopefully you keep that in mind, that expenses do keep going up. So.
yeah, and one thing I will point out too with this vote, it's not the timing of certain things isn't great when it comes to pass this referendum. One of the things that came out here, and as homeowners, we all saw this, was our property tax statements, and people get a little excited about those things sometimes and seeing their values go up and also their taxes maybe going up. But I challenge those people that have those questions about what Southeast Polk School District's taxes have done. Look at those rates going back 6-7 years and look at the 30% decline in those tax rates. We're doing what we need to as administration, and the board has made decisions over the past 5-6 years to put us in a position where we can do this without raising those district tax rates. And ultimately, to get these projects done now in the environment that we're in, it's no better time to do so than now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point on the taxes, because we don't have control over what the cities do, but we have definitely done a great job since I've been on the board. And I still appreciate the work that you've done since you've come here, Kevin. So
Thank you.
kudos to you for that.
And based on interest rates, there's not a better time to borrow money with the low interest rates that are out there and the stable construction costs. So I'm just going to keep hammering that home until Tuesday night.
Well, and that
September
the
8th.
interest rates, I mean, that's millions of dollars. of savings.
Millions.
Mhm.
Yeah, the interest rates are, over my years on the board, I just keep thinking they can't get lower, and they have, but I mean, now they're bouncing on the bottom. So this is a good time. That's why we've seen so much. That's why Lori's been so busy doing what she does with home mortgages. This is a good time if you need to borrow money to get it locked in. And yeah, these needs continue. You know, COVID will come, and eventually it's here. It will eventually pass, and these needs are still here. So I'm glad we're planning to try to meet them. And I think also we've been very diligent, like Kevin says, about we will have paid back all of our other general obligation debt. And we did a lot of smart moves along those lines too. And
that's ahead of schedule too, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
How many years, just so the public knows, Kevin?
The bonds that we have currently are callable 2023. As far as the due date, they were supposed to be due 2029. So we've cut a number of years down. When we did that initial refinancing of some of those debts, it was millions of dollars of interest. I don't recall what the exact number was, but if you recall, it was one of those case studies that our financial consultants had talked about.
Yeah.
And they pay off next year now or 23?
Yes. We've collected enough to pay them up, but we actually can't pay them until 2023.
Right.
6 years.
Right. That's significant.
6 years ahead of schedule. So that obviously gives us a good reason why we can do this stuff now. And so I appreciate the committee's work and Kevin and administration's work on this, and hopefully
Getting the
it'll
word
pass.
out.
Mhm.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Okay, our next item is an activities update.
Mr. Horton.
Oh, did I miss something? Oh, I missed Mr. Horton. Enrollment update.
Good evening, everyone. The enrollment update's right there in front of you. You know,
Yes.
kind of as it customarily is.
Yep.
I think one thing that I've noticed this year is how our enrollment waxes and wanes, literally in 2 week increments. If you recall, if you go back, I believe it was maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, we had a pretty healthy number of students on the plus side of where we were a year ago. And then the following week we were way down, or the following 2 weeks we were way down from where we were then. And then we came back up, and then now we're going back down again. So it's been kind of a topsy-turvy enrollment year to this point. Obviously there are a lot of people out there, a lot of families out there that have to make decisions about what's best, for them. And really in the last 2 weeks, we've worked with 67 different families who've changed their enrollments. And that's really where our current number of being down just about 80 students from where we were a year ago. The vast majority of those people have moved. And when I say moved, it's literally everywhere from Arizona to Florida and all places in between. Some families have chosen homeschooling. I know we've had 4 kindergarten families that are waiting another year to send their kids to kindergarten, and I'm very suspicious that there might be significantly more from the standpoint of in kindergarten this year we're anywhere from about 20 to 70 students from where RSP had predicted we would be. They thought we'd be between 500 and 550. And, obviously, as you look at that number, we're hanging around 480. So I'm thinking maybe some folks are holding their kindergartners back, maybe another year of preschool, that kind of thing, which, obviously that's their prerogative, no question. But that's kind of the long and short of enrollment right now. I think as you look at the elementary landscape, there's not a lot of blue there. Blue meaning sections that are closed. I think that's what we're predominantly seeing fewer elementary kids right now. But it's kind of, we're in one of those years. Give it 2 more weeks, and flip a coin. Who knows where the number is going to be? Hopefully, it'll be much larger than it is currently right now. But that's kind of the long and short of enrollment right now. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Horton, just I always forget year to year when we talk about hotspots, and I can't remember what your guys' magic number. I know that we don't have anything definite, but is 4 Mile, looks like 4 Mile's got 27 each in their 3rd grade, and then Delaware has 27 each in their 5th grade. Is there, if we had a magic number, are we getting close to that for splitting those?
Yes, no question about it. I think, about the time we hit anywhere from, like 28, 29, 30, I think all of us get nervous. So yeah, it's 27 and basically and holding. I think if those 27 look like 28s, they'd probably all be blue.
Okay. And obviously with the hybrid too, I mean, that's not a big concern right now, but as we go back to full time, we're going to be watching those, I take it. So
yeah,
right.
Certainly. And with board meetings every 2 weeks, I do like to keep this, keep it current and keep it in front of not only all of you, but all of us as well. Because changes in enrollment cause all kinds of interesting, challenges for people. It immediately challenges the curriculum office because they have to buy textbooks and they have to have materials and they've got to have, all these things sort of farmed out to the buildings so that all kids have everything that they need. So yeah, we stay on top of it pretty diligently just because it affects everything. And I know Kevin does because obviously it's the driver of our budget. So, it's just one of those things we just stay on top of because you just have to.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Oh, you're welcome.
right, now, item 3C, activities update.
Good evening. As you can see there, I've just kind of started out with, provided everyone with a snapshot of what our participation levels are for this fall with the things we have going on. And honestly, if you look at those numbers, that's pretty impressive, really, that we're, at the time those were taken, we were within 6 of where we were last year. So I think we're overall happy with the participation numbers we have, and that's a testament to our coaches, our directors, and our sponsors out there. So I don't know if anybody has any questions initially about those, but some of the changes and the impacts, just like classroom settings, there's a lot of challenges to navigate every day, and I really want to tip my cap to our coaches, directors, and sponsors again, but really trying to reinforce the kids wear masks when we can, and when we're not able to social distance, our coaches and kids and our custodial staff are working hard. There's sanitation of equipment. If you've been to a volleyball game, it's similar to baseball. The volleyball goes out, somebody else touches it. It goes to one central location where there's somebody there to sanitize the ball before they go back in. So it's something we got to all get used to. It's a little bit different right now. Social distancing, again, some things lend itself better than others, but again, when we can, making sure we're trying to social distance. As most of you are aware, we've had to limit attendance at some of our events, just to account for social distancing and being able to do that. Some other things, marching band opportunities are very limited. I do have Valley Fest is continuing. My understanding is that's back a little bit now. Again, pretty tenuous situation as to whether or not that's going to be able to go on or not, but largely all of their competitions have been canceled. If you look at the formats of some of the things that we participate in, not only are there spectator limitations, but you also see smaller volleyball tournaments, for example. We used to host the Metro Classic and would have anywhere from 15 to 21 teams. We just didn't feel confident that we could do that in any way that was safe. So what the ADs of the conference did was got together and put together a schedule that involved more triangulars. So it means more nights, more weekends, but it's still giving kids an opportunity to get matches in. They're just, instead of having large weekend tournaments, we have more frequent triangulars. Golf, cross-country events are a little more limited. And I think what you see is cutting down on the number of participants. And again, that we don't want to necessarily limit the opportunities for kids. So our own home invite for cross country, while we limit JV runners for other schools, we allow, as the host, we allow all of our JV runners to participate. We also scheduled a separate JV only and worked with 2 other schools in the league to get 2 other dates so that all of our runners have more opportunities. Just other things just that are different when we go on the road, save for football. There's just no locker room available, and it'll be the same when Centennial visits us tomorrow night. As for right now, it's just a recommendation that they're not in there, and so you give them some open space and you bring some portable toilets in, and that's just, again, something that we're all having to kind of get used to. Another thing we're really trying to work with that is a challenge is limiting food, and that's on the bus, on-site meals, those sort of things. So I just wanted to give you a snapshot of some of the challenges, some of the things that we're trying to emphasize, but also to give you an overall view of where our participation levels are at the high school right now in terms of activities. And as you can see, that's pretty healthy right now.
Jason, I just have a few comments if you got a
Yep.
second. First, I guess, thank you for working with the student body and seeing that those seniors that can get in can. It's probably not the best solution, but it is a solution that works. And so I thank you guys for working with the student body. I know there was 4 or 5 students that started the petition and I think came and talked to you and worked with the city to get some permits to do some off-site stuff. But I think that means a lot to the community. And then band and rhythmettes, I know they had a concern, so I appreciate you guys working with them as well and trying to make it to get everybody some time in there because these are obviously difficult times where you're trying to, with our stadium, if you want to get back to the referendum piece, it's like, if we had the stadium size, we probably wouldn't be in these discussions. And so I just want to say thanks for administration, you guys taking care of that. So.
Appreciate it. And I'd like to really thank our student leaders, Jacob Moberly and Jordan Brown, really kind of spearheaded it in the way that they've approached it and trying to lay out what they're going to do to kind of help us. Helps give me confidence that what we're doing isn't going to jeopardize going to school every day. And I think they realize kind of what's at stake, and they approached it the right way. And so I couldn't be more impressed with really our student leaders and how they brought this to the table to try to work through this, to come up with a solution. Again, like you said, maybe it's not completely ideal, but I think they understand it's a start and an opportunity. So again, I'd like to thank them.
Yeah, you got to try something, and so thank you.
Jason, so a question for you about next Friday, not tomorrow, but the 11th. With all DMPS schools now being ruled ineligible, what are we planning on doing? Or are we going to try and fit something special in? Or are we just kind of letting it go as a bye week? Or
well, that's a good question right now, and let's probably the biggest one hanging out there is just directly in our face is what are we going to do with the football game on Friday? And so if you look at it, there were 9 4A schools that didn't have opponents. And unfortunately, with our reputation at this very moment, we're the odd man out. Nobody really wanted to play us. And so we've been, again, looking at what options we have and exploring all of those, and we'll continue to the thing about it is this can be pretty fluid. Fort Dodge was looking for an opponent for tomorrow night and secured one today at 11 a.m. And so what I've told our coaches is we're just going to have to kind of buckle in here and understand that we may not have a traditional preparation week for something like that, but somebody's not going to have the same preparation for us either. So for all those things, we're kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. And, there's a lot up in the air in terms of injunctions. Could that come? Sure. I spoke with the High School Athletic Association today a little bit about that. I spoke with one of the activities directors in Des Moines Public yesterday about what they kind of knew. And, I think it's best that right now we're trying to maybe get some gentlemen's agreements in case things happen. But, we're in a tough spot, just going to be completely honest with football. When you look at the teams out there that had open dates, I think they found more attractive opponents than playing us next week. So we'll see what shakes out there. But yeah, it's a concern.
Jason, I can't imagine what your job has been like. Just crazy. And it sounds like, all this sounds familiar. We're all doing the best we can under extraordinary circumstances. I just had a question. I'm glad to see it is amazing. Our overall counts are doing so well on activities as compared to last year. I'm just looking at marching band though, and that there's kind of a chunk off of their group. I don't know. It must have been made up in other areas, but do you know why that is? Or is that just some more of everything else that we're dealing with? Or,
I don't know specifically if that is a reflection of some of the school choices you can make with the COVID. I really haven't delved into it too much. Maybe Steve knows a little bit as well. It's a co-curricular class, but I think my recollection is their feeling was maybe there were a chunk there that were all online and chose not to come in. So
I wondered. And I know it fluctuates anyway, so maybe that's all it is.
I can try to find out some more from them and shoot you an email.
Sure. I know you're busy, so deal with it appropriately. I know you have
Sure.
your plate.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Can we get just a quick rundown of kind of like what compromises and what you guys did for the kids, just to kind of get them involved and get them active in their attendance to the football games and stuff? Because I'm not sure everybody here knows.
Yeah. So initially, I think when you looked around the CIML, initially there was 0 student sections. I think Ankeny was the first one, Ankeny High School, who had a lottery. And my understanding is I think they let in 200 students. I saw the petition, and to me, it was more, and we'd had some discussions early on about potentially what it could look like and what our concerns were. And again, I just kind of go back to Jacob and Jordan and having a plan and putting it together and being able to kind of assure us that is the spokespeople for our student body. But long story short is we developed a plan where basically we've put social distancing in what's the D zone, which is the area behind the south end zone, where we're going to put 75, and we did that by a lottery system, where Wednesday we sent out a Google form link and the first 75 to respond to it. We're going to let in free. We're not going to charge those kids. I think our feeling was that the bleachers kind of lends itself to packing in together down there versus can we put X's on the ground and ask them to bring in chairs and they can sit and have their student section in that D zone. Again, is that perfect? It's probably not the perfect viewing angle, but again, taking into consideration the whole entire scope of everything, that was a compromise that they felt comfortable with, and that's what we move forward with right now.
Do you know how many kids applied for your for
Yeah,
tickets?
I think there were the day that we did it, I think there were 99. I looked today when I was printing off the sheet, and there was maybe 120 some, maybe. So, we'll look at it Friday night and see what that space looks like and see what our capacity is.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. So there might be some room left for them, like maybe in the junior high section or something like that. I think you might be able to squeeze some more in, because I know we didn't know what.
Maybe both end zones, or
Yeah, we might be able to squeeze some in on I get a little, we're kind of putting media, and then you've got team personnel that's coming in through on the north side. So I would prefer to keep them in the south side if I can. I talked to Jordan a little bit today because part of the deal, we actually have 81 in there because the kids who hatched the idea told me, well, I asked them to put the X's down with the spacing. So there's 81 because those kids did it. And Jordan came to me today and thinks, hey, I think we have some more space. I said, well, let's see how it goes Friday night. And if we have more space and it goes well, then let's add some more kids in there. So I think there's a possibility of doing that. And I want to see, do all the kids that signed up actually show up? That's part of it, as well. So yeah, we have the opportunity to potentially add some more.
what's the bleachers hold that they usually?
What are the bleachers that the students are normally in?
Yeah. Is the number that much different? I mean, if you got 90 or 125, I mean, it seems like you're pretty close to what you might have anyway.
Yeah, I don't know I think they say the home side is 3,500. That center section is obviously somebody that's better with fractions than me, is a little bit bigger than the other two. And so I'm not sure, a big game, we come pretty close to filling that entire student section. So,
Jason,
but go ahead. Yeah.
when we did our graduation seating, which is really similar to what we're doing in our stands for the football games, is we have 4-person family boxes. And then you have to have 6 feet between the next family box. So we're doing that on the entire home side, the junior high section, the middle section, and the high school section. The high school and junior high section are roughly the same. They're about, you can have about 40, maybe 45 of those boxes in that area. But as soon as you go down to 2-person boxes, you lose capacity because you have to add additional spaces between your 2-person boxes. So to go from 4-person boxes to 2-person boxes, you lose 37% of your capacity. So if you would go down to 1-person boxes in a student section, it's even smaller. So I do not believe we would get much more than 75 kids in our home student section bleachers, but that means we would lose 150 or so families seats, if that makes sense.
Yes.
How are we handling, what do we do with the visitor seats? How do we control that?
So the CIML basically came up with a range. You have to provide a minimum of 160. So in essence, what it boils down to is each roster member gets a voucher to buy 2 tickets when they show up at our game. So we had wristbands printed up. We send them to the school that's coming here. They distribute them to the players who then give them to their parents. They show up at the wristband that allows them to buy a ticket. Then we've put decals. We have decals all over our home bleachers and our visiting bleachers. The visiting we've potted into, well, not yet because they just came in this afternoon, but tomorrow we'll spend the part of the day over there putting basically sit here. If you've been in the gym for volleyball, we put decals on the bleachers that say sit here in pods of 4. On the visitor side, it'll be pods of 2.
All right.
Thanks for working with the kids. I mean, it's pretty awesome because I mean that's what we're there for, and that's what they're there for. So, and I like the fact that the football families have their spot. I just think that if we could take every extra spot that's not being used by the families and just offer those to the kids first, I mean, I think that would be a fantastic gesture for our kids. So, and if we can make, if we can make room in the junior high section and stuff like that to get as many of those 122 in there as we can, I think that would go a long way with our students. So.
Sounds good. We'll see how it goes tomorrow night and then adjust where we can.
So I would assume, how do you do swimming then?
Yep. Swimming is maybe the most challenging of all of our sports just because of space limitation, and they're really well attended. And so the CIML as a league voted that you cannot have any spectators from road schools attend. And so there's no spectators from visiting. For us, each of our swimmers gets 2 tickets. Now, that's when we have a duel. Where we run into an issue is if we have a tournament or any sort of invitational. And so for invitationals right now, in order for those of you who have been to swimming, some of the teams are large, some of them aren't, but again, it's the pool deck has limited space for kids to be apart. So when we have an invitational, we have to take what's in essence our grandstand and use that to put swimmers in so we can distance. So when we have invitationals, we actually won't have spectators at all for those events. And we've even cut those down. But some venues don't have any spectators at all, home or away. We at least have tried to do what we can to make sure for our home meets that when we're swimming duels that our parents are able to come to those.
Yeah, it seems like without even COVID, that probably an expansion in the swimming area might be on the horizon anyway. So that's just from what I see, but I'll throw that out there. Not that you want to hear it, but I'm going to throw it out there.
I mean, I'm sure they'd be happy about it.
I don't have a swimmer. I just seeing it, but as I say, it seems like it could be probably a little congested in there.
Yeah, and along with Johnson, who has in essence the same,
Cool.
it's the same pool, have far and away the best kind of facilities that are our own. I mean, Waukee and Ankeny partner with YMCA's, and so, but in terms of the schools that have their own pool, it's us and Johnson, and we're better off than Johnson because their pool is attached to their middle school, and so yeah, we have one of the best ones, but it can get pretty crowded in there. It's not a great situation in the COVID era here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get facilities in every conversation for the referendum, if you didn't figure that out.
Yeah, I like that.
Am I doing okay?
Yeah, you're doing great. You know,
All right.
yeah. I don't get myself in trouble.
Seriously, I mean, yeah, it's definitely, was it 10 years old now, the building?
It was 9. It opened in 9.
9? So,
11.
Anything else for Jason?
I'd like to pile on the compliments also, both to the students that, and also for, Jason, Steve, for you guys, everybody being willing to work with them to try to accommodate. I mean, that just shows how much we care about our kids and how much we want to give them as much normalcy as we can. I did have one question, I guess, in terms of like marching band and rhythmettes. It sounds like there's very limited opportunities. What are we doing to, or what opportunities are we providing for them to perform?
Yeah, so both of them, we definitely offered the opportunity to, anytime they wanted to schedule their own evening where we would turn on the lights and let their families come out and watch them have a performance, that we could do that. And so both of them are going to do that. I know bands is scheduled. I don't know if the Rhythmettes is on the actual schedule yet, but that was prior to even finding a date that worked with football, is again to make sure that they would have an evening that their families could come out and watch them. So I think marching band also has a Saturday clinic that they'll invite their parents to come watch. So the Rhythmettes is a little bit different than marching band in that their season continues on. They typically perform at home basketball games too, and then their state competition is in the winter. So, and then they continue on through the spring with they have their regional MA that we always host, and then every other year they have their nationals trip. So the Rhythmettes is a little bit different situation in that this isn't their main competition season. Not that we don't want them to have opportunities, because we have the best dance team in the state. And so every opportunity they have to perform is a great opportunity for them and in our community. But they'll have other opportunities, hopefully, on down the road, and their competitive season starts a little bit later. Marching band, this is really it, and it's tough. Like I said, I know Valley Fest was going to try to make a run at how to do that and still, be COVID compliant, but that's a real challenge, and I'm not sure where that's at right now. The last discussion I had with Jason and Jackie was probably a week ago, and that was a pretty tenuous situation with Valley Fest. After it was, no, we're going to try to make a go of it. I think there's some real hesitation, and I mean, some of these things are just, yeah, they're tough. And but to answer your question, we offered them any night that we want to schedule that allows them to perform under the lights and for their families to come out. We would make that happen for them. The Rhythmettes only wanted to do that one time, and marching band again is one time plus the Saturday clinic they had.
Jason, this is Rick Powell. I just want to say thank you too. Like all the other board members are thanking you, because it's, doing your job is something I tried for a long time, and it's just amazing. And a lot of people don't know behind the scenes what you and Mr. Pettit have been doing. to make these things work, whatever topic you want to talk about. And I've learned a lot in the last 2 weeks about things you guys have tried and everybody you've talked to. And, the public just isn't privy to everything that you've tried and every solution you've suggested. And I just think it's wonderful. And then if people knew your side of things, there would be no questions, because you and Mr. Pettit have went above and beyond. And thank you for doing that.
I appreciate it, but so of our directors who are incredibly flexible, and our coaches, it's the same thing. I appreciate it, but it really takes all of us working together, and I can say all of them have. Sometimes they're disappointed, but most of the time we're work together to try to keep talking, to figure out a way to get to where a better place, at least, maybe not where everybody wants to be, but something everybody can live with right now.
It's really appreciated.
Yeah, it's a great job. And not to forget Jordan. So
Yeah, good job.
thank you.
Jordan.
I mean, excellent job. I mean, you guys are awesome. Is there anything that you want to say we were super impressed with you as far as getting organized?
Jordan, how did, I assume you're still going to do the Sam Wise thing Friday, even though, will you do the away games though, or? Okay. Okay.
Hey, Jason, one last thing. I see some other schools doing it, and probably because they're not, the Des Moines schools, especially because their future's up in the air as far as activities, as we all know. But last year's seniors got so many things taken away from them, the class of 2020. None of us want the class of 2021 to be in the same boat. But my question is, some schools are having senior night sooner than the last game, just in case something would break. None of us know the future, and none of us can predict. And is that anything you're considering with any of your activities, and maybe have, instead of waiting to the last game, that maybe have it sooner just to make sure it gets done?
Yeah, it was a consideration. I mean, I talked to Brad Zelinovich about it briefly today. I won't say that as of yet it's reached a real serious level, but I think it's worth considering. I think you're right. I think the Des Moines public knows that the end was really near for possibly two reasons, which, and again, I don't disagree with you, and I think it warrants having a conversation if people do want to do that. I think, again, something we can take a look at, and yeah, I think you have to be realistic. I'd like to tell you I'm a glass is half full on this, but I think, we have to be realistic. I'm hopeful. I mean, things have went well to this point, so, but I think it does warrant some consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Jason. That means you have just over 24 hours to save the first game for these seniors, and maybe the last last game.
Well,
Don't worry, it's over 24 hours. It's
Yeah.
only 24 seats. Oh.
all
Well, thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
All right. Shuffle my agenda under. Next item is 3D advanced placement update. Steve?
All right. Well, this is the annual AP report. But there's really nothing annual about what happened last year. I mean, it was kind of the first ever that there's been, at-home AP testing, which is what happened. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a lot of the same data that we have collected from the College Board. But I also want to provide a little bit different context because the tests were significantly different than what they've been in the past. And I'm not sure how much we've really talked about that in a public setting. So I want to, give us, the data, and then kind of talk about what the experience was like for our kids. So if you can go to the first slide. So again, a lot of the graphics and the tables are the same tables that we've had in the past. We had 83 and almost 84% of our kids that were in a class in the beginning of the second semester take their exam. So that is, right in the range of where we've been. We've had a couple years where I call it our exam participation rate has been a little bit higher, but there's been years where it's been a little bit lower, okay? The AP index, that is a pure ratio. That's a ratio of the number of tests that are taken divided by the number of graduates you have in that year. So the College Board, actually it's Iowa City, the AP index will come from them. Usually by this time I have the previous year's official number, but I highlighted that in yellow because that 0.87 is still an estimate based off of the numbers that I have. Sometimes there's some moving parts. Some kids would take an exam that didn't show up until later. So that 87 or 0.87 is a pretty good number, but it's not official yet. That's why I've left it as an estimate. Last year's number would be 0.96. So for the most part, that means we had about the same number of AP exams as we did seniors in the class of 2020. If it was 1.0, then it would be the exact same number. Okay. Something I did want to point out here, though, is because the exams were taken online, we did have fewer, a lower percentage of our kids take an exam that they had registered to take. So normally when students register for an exam and pay for an exam, we have about 95% of those kids that actually do end up taking the test. Okay. Previously, if you don't take the test that you've registered for, you don't get all your money back. You might get a portion of it back, but you forfeit kind of a reservation fee. This year, we only had 86% of our kids take the test that they had registered and paid for. Now, the nice thing about what the College Board did is they gave a full refund, and that was communicated ahead of time. So since the rules kind of changed in the middle, they did say, if you don't want to take an AP exam, we're not going to make you, we're going to give you back all your money. So that is kind of a reason why we had a lower percentage of our kids actually take the exams. But again, that also speaks to 453 exams, taken. We had a higher number than that registered. And if we would not have had COVID, we would have had an AP index of probably something above 1 because more kids would have taken. So we had 75 exams that were not taken that were paid for originally. And that was actually 64 kids. So most of those 64 kids still ended up taking an exam, but instead of taking maybe the 3 that they would have normally taken, they backed it off and only took 2. So again, we had 75 kids or 75 exams that were not taken that were being prepared to be taken by 64 students. Any questions on that?
I guess in terms of a goal, what are we trying to hit? Is one really the measure or?
You know, I kind of have it's a pretty lofty goal. My goal is 100% of the kids that request to take an AP course the following year will start taking that course in August. And then my goal is 100% of those kids will still be in the course in January. And then 100% of those kids feel confident enough that they're going to pass the exam, that they're going to take it. So my goal is our exam participation rate is as close to 100% as possible. If it turns out that we have a lot of kids that want to take AP exams, then our AP index is going to be higher, right? And if we don't have as many kids that want to take it, then our AP index is going to be a little bit lower. So I really, the AP index is a metrics that, you know, is public, but for me, the exam participation rate is really what I want to be as high as possible, because that means our kids set a lofty goal for themselves. They persevered through the hard, because AP classes are hard, and they still had the confidence to take an exam at the end. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but
Yeah, so it sounds like
one's a good number.
right, but based on the people that sign up for it, you want to see the follow through.
Yes.
Is really what you're looking at.
Yes.
Okay.
And as you can see from the AP index, we've had a couple years where we were above 1, but we also had several years, you know, prior to 2015, where 0.5 or 0.6. I mean, those were relatively normal numbers previously.
Well, and being on the board at that time, I remember there was at least that was a topic of discussion. So these are great numbers, and I'm amazed. I mean, especially you look at that trend from 13 and 14 are kind of right there neck and neck. And then from there on down, climb. And even with COVID and guess what I'm hearing you say is some of the things AP did with, hey, you can take a full refund, all that. I mean, without COVID, that number was probably queued up to climb again.
It
Sounds
could have
like
been 500. I would maybe approximate it, probably would have been a 500 number.
yeah. So that'd be great.
I'm going to go to the next slide. So this one's more of a frequency distribution. You know, how many kids took how many different exams? And I did provide the last couple of years just from a comparison point. But, you know, again, we had 453 exams that were taken. Majority of our exams are taken by juniors and seniors. You know, majority of our kids just take one exam, but there are a handful of kids that will take 2 exams or 3 exams. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a context, a little bit of a comparison across the years, but it's been pretty historical that junior year is really the big year where kids probably take the highest number of exams. And, you know, this year was true to that. We go to the next one, and I'll spend some time talking about this. I do want you to know that some of our scores are still in the appeals process. So, you know, this year, I think there were more appeals than previous years. You know, if a student didn't get a passing score, whether it's the student and or the teacher can ask for kind of let's look at that one again. We have had a couple of exams that have come back on appeal that previously weren't passing that now are passing. So our passing rate could raise a little bit. You know, just for context, 65.3 was the number, it was kind of a passing rate for all of our exams. The Iowa passing rate was just over 60, the global passing rate 61. Anything that I highlighted in green on that top row means that we had a higher passing rate for that specific exam compared to Iowa and the global. But again, to put it in context, the last couple of years, we've been closer to 73 to 75% of a passing rate. So, you know, we did do better than Iowa and the global like we have done the last handful of years, but everybody's passing rate was lower this year and compared to previous years.
Okay, I'm sorry, I jumped the rail somewhere. Say your first part of that again.
About the appeal fee?
No, something about the percentage, Southeast Polk's percentage.
The very last column.
Yes.
65.3.
Yes.
So the percentage of all of our exams that were taken that were passed, and a pass means a 3, 4, or a 5 score. 65.3% of all exams that were taken received a passing score. Iowa's passing rate was 60.7.
Okay.
The global rate was 61.7.
That's where these masks get in the way. I thought you said 55 and I was looking all over and then I was going to that language arts number, but I follow now.
Steve,
We did better than Iowa and the global.
And we have for the last handful of years. But the last handful of years, Iowa was higher, global was higher, and we were higher.
Sure.
But again, I think that speaks, I've got some reasoning that I'll go through in a
Okay.
minute, but I think that speaks to just, it was a different type of test. Adam, do you have a question?
One of these jumps out to me in not in a good way. What happened with Chem?
Well, one, it's a low number. I mean, we only had 13 kids take it.
Okay.
So I mean, I think that's one of the things. Not on this document, but on another set of reports that I have, we had a lot of twos. We had a lot of kids that were close.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I mean, the thing about passing is a 3 you celebrate, a 2 you don't.
Yeah.
And obviously there's got to be some sort of differentiator between what's a 2 and a 3. But again, when I get into kind of talking about what happened during the year, it might put a little bit of context to that. I think last year we were higher than the Iowa average and the global average in Chem by a lot.
Yeah, it's just a very drastic shift, and you don't see that shift in any of those other numbers where it's so far off the pace.
Right. But I think one of the reasons, again, there's only 13. You know, if
That's
3
fair.
more kids would have passed, now your rate would have been over 50.
Yeah.
You know, so. But here's something I just want to kind of give you some context around. You know, the exams were completely different this year. Most exams have 2 different types of questions. They have like an essay or a constructed response type question, and then they have multiple choice. So most exams, whether it's biology or literature or any of them, they have 2 different types of questions. Well, this year, the constructed response was the only type of questions that they had. Okay, so the multiple choice section usually accounts for a half to 2/3 of the score. So the type of question that usually accounts for the majority of the score was not part of any of the tests this year.
Why did they do that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would have thought it would have gone the other way.
I don't know. But so, you know, come March 12th, our teachers had prepared students that the multiple choice was going to be a
For
big
sure.
portion of the test.
Right.
So that's kind of a shift in preparation versus assessment. So that leads to, I think, some of the overall global lower passing rates, not just ours. Also, the College Board, they decide that 2/3 of the course was going to be what they were going to put on the exam. So from the entire curriculum of a specific course, they decided, here's the 2/3 of the curriculum that we're going to assess, and they let us know what that was. The problem is, just because we were 2/3 of the way into the year, each school gets to establish their own syllabus and their own pacing. So our 2/3 of a course might not have equaled the 2/3 of a course that they were assessing. And the only way to make up the gap was through our optional learning time. So, I mean, I think that's important to know, you know, this kind of potential misalignment between the content that our teachers had focused on versus what the College Board said they were going to assess, the way in which we prepared kids. You know, our teachers do a lot of practice exams. A lot of those practice exams, you know, they happen throughout the year. It's not just at the end. And those practice exams are really heavily into, you know, the multiple choice. We didn't get an assessment over the multiple choice. You know, and this is a small piece, but, you know, one of my teachers wanted to point this out because it's really important. You know, normally you take a paper pencil test. You know, there's all sorts of testing strategies, annotation. You know, when you're reading something and you mark up the book and you highlight things and you write in the margins and you do all that, and then you manually write your essay question. That's how it's been in the past. This year, it's an online test. You don't have a paper copy of the text that you're reading. You're on a small screen. Annotation tools aren't really present. And then you're typing your answer on a different screen. So it's just the whole operation of how do I do the essay test without having some of those, you know, this test taking strategies that we prepared for just made things different. So this might sound like, you know, an excuse for the data, but I think it's just the reality. It was a different type of scenario than what we've ever had in the past. And there was some misalignment between what we had taught and what the college board said was going to be on the test. And then we had about a month of online learning to try to fill in the gaps. Some of our kids were awesome. They were engaged in every single session that our teachers offered, and they did really, really well. We had some other kids that didn't engage as much in the online sessions and still took the tests. And some of those kids did really well, but some of them maybe didn't. That might have been more of the twos, you know, compared to where it would in threes in the past. So any questions on this? And there's a lot of data up there. So we do have the number of fives per exam, which again, a 5 is considered the top score. So we did have 55 this year, which to me is still a great number.
Yeah, sure is.
Go to the next slide. This is more of just kind of their cumulative over the years. So I don't know, Jason, is there a way that you can slide that up anyway? You've got that green bar right on those numbers. Okay, perfect. So 33% of the class of 2020 took an exam. And of all exams taken by the class of 2020, 76% of them were passed. So that was one of our highest overall passing rates. Granted, it was a lower total percentage than we've had the last couple of years, but you can still see that we had, you know, 471 kids take a total of 400 exams at some point through their 4 years. We had one student, I think it was take 11 exams. You can see again, fewer kids take one, you know, a couple more, you know, just kind of the distribution of how many exams they take. Go to the next slide, Jason. So the College Board has different levels of honor. And, you know, this is kind of our history of Southeast Polk when it comes to AP scholars. If you look at the column for 2020, 60 students in the class of 2020 had some level of AP scholar, which was the most we've ever had. And again, going back to, I point this out every year, 2008 ... means every year up through 2008, we had 55 AP scholars in the history of Southeast Polk through 2008. And last year alone, we had 60. So again, those are really good numbers. And I've got kind of the descriptions of what those different distinction levels are. Every student that is an AP scholar gets their name either on a nameplate hung in the Commons. The national AP scholars, which we have 2 this year, get their picture in a different nameplate. So just outside the guidance office, the counseling office, we have those AP scholar boards.
So from 2008 prior, there were 55. And then last year alone, we had 60.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yeah, so if to come back, I mean, no challenge, I guess, to people, but, you know, next year, the number is going to be 77. It's going to be 2009 ...
Right. Yes.
So,
So
this
there you
challenge, class of
go.
2021,
There's the
we need to
bar.
get at least 78
Jump.
in order for me to continue to say this. I think I've said it
Yeah.
every year, so it's going to
Yeah.
get harder, but it's a great testament to not just kids trying something hard once, but this is consistently trying multiple things that are challenging and doing well.
And through the years, we've increased our class offerings of the AP exam. So back in 2008, we didn't have that
That's
many
true.
offerings.
Good point.
So, but it's accolades to them to continue to raise the standards and raise the bar of expectations and challenge the students to take the AP classes and challenge themselves.
If you go to the next slide, Jason, and kind of to piggyback on what Lori's saying, in the 13-14 school year, there's no data for stats or government or human geography because we didn't teach those 3 courses that year. Okay, so in 14-15, that's when we brought in statistics, we brought in human geography, Last year, we brought in US politics and government. Okay, there aren't a whole lot of other AP courses to bring in,
Wouldn't think.
but this is the bottom line there is our current enrollments in our AP courses. Okay, so they're just a little bit under what it's been in the past, but 569 compared to where we were in 13-14 is still a great number. And then the last slide, Jason, this just tells you how many AP courses students are currently enrolled in by grade level. How many kids are taking 1 course, 2 course, 3 courses. So any other questions on anything AP related?
Keep it up, Steve.
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, I remember those early days on the board and we just wrung our hands, think, gosh, our kids can do better than this. And I recognize not everybody goes to college, and nor should they. But we wanted our kids that do decide to go that route to be successful there. And I do feel like this is evidence we're doing our job, that these kids are going to be able to get to college that decide to go. That's their route, and be able to hold their own, I guess, and or do better than that, do well.
I agree. And I think we've done a really nice job as a district. You know, AP is the end of the road, but just the challenging of our courses all the way through, whether it's the elementaries to the junior high to the high school, they all kind of lead to this end point. But in addition to AP, we have dual credit classes where students get DMAC credit. And we've made a decision not to blur those lines. You know, some school districts will have an AP course that's also a dual credit course, but there's a lot of red tape involved in those based off TESOL licensure and certifications. So we've kind of kept those separate, but we've continued to expand our DMAC credit programming also. Some of those credits would be your core academic classes as well. For example, in mathematics, every course the year after Algebra 2 is a DMAC dual credit course.
Okay.
And then after that, they would take AP calculus,
Okay,
AP
gotcha.
statistics, something along those lines. So we've really paralleled those really well together. We have a lot of our CTE courses, which don't have an AP option, but they have dual credit DMAC programming options. So we've really tried to look at college preparatory programming, whether it's advanced placement through AP, whether it's dual credit, but then also in some of our CTE areas, what is a dual credit program that leads to a certificate program that could go directly into a job placement, a work-related skill.
And
So we're
CT
really trying to
is
hit it from all angles.
CT is career tech,
Career tech education. You know, it's basically it's business,
right?
industrial technology, family consumer science, agricultural science, and our health occupations program.
It's the career part of our
Right.
mission. Well, thank you. And your team for all their hard work. That's great. All right. Our next item is return to learn.
You bet. I wanted to share some data tonight. And Jason will help me with the slide there. If you could move ahead to the next slide, Jason. So just to go through again, the criteria for Iowa schools and instructional models, and I know that's really small, but this was part of our return to learn plan. It's been part of the board agenda before, but basically, this is the law for schools in Iowa, and we know that there are some things going on across Iowa dealing with that, but not dealing with us. So that's based on percent positivity and absenteeism. Those are kind of the two main data pieces as far as looking at Iowa schools and instructional models. And then there are 4 community criteria there, and those are the CDC community from none to minimal all the way up to substantial uncontrolled. Next slide, please. So looking at our data then as of today for Polk County. Again, and you'll see here a little bit of the things that do cause some confusion. But on the COVID-19 Iowa site, which I believe is, well, I'll just call it the state of Iowa site. It doesn't have a credit. I think it's the Department of Public Health / the state of Iowa. In Polk County, our percent positivity for today was 10.5%. And that's either on the map there on the left or the graph on the top. The graph on the bottom is from the Polk County Department of Health, and their numbers today were 11.2% for percent positive, which is kind of weird because if you look at comparing those two over the last few days, the Polk County number has normally been lower than the Iowa number. Regardless, it's in the ballpark. I think probably more importantly is just to look at the trend since school began. In general, we've moved from about 8.5% positivity to 10.5% positivity. So it's increasing, but it's not at that 15% rate that might necessitate a discussion about whether we need to make major changes from a model standpoint on the more restrictive side. We're not there. And next slide, to kind of underline that, when you look at our attendance rates, that green bar is the first week this year. Our attendance for the first week was 97.8%. The blue bar was the first week last year, 97.7. So you can see statistically, we're basically in the same spot. So again, the state's criteria is from an absenteeism, so we'll switch it over to that way. So the difference there is 2.2% absenteeism for this year, 2.3% for last year. So like I said, no real change so far. Now, granted, this is for the district. There are differences at the building levels, and we do track that daily at each building and report it to the Polk County Health Department. And I can tell you that that this same pattern is holding form for this week. I'll pull the same data again tomorrow after week 2. I'll share that with you in our weekly update. But as of today, it's pretty much the same as you're looking at there. And it also kind of shows something that we know, something that we're very proud of too at Southeast Polk. Our kids come to school. Our attendance rates are always strong. So COVID-19 data, and we'll start by looking at student data. And that 5712 number is actually a little bit high right now because we did have a few more students move to the online model today. After, of course, I made this slide, but it's close enough because I think it was maybe 10-ish. So as you look at those numbers for us, quarantine due to close contact, we have 96 students that are in that situation. And we have 10 students that have had a positive test result. So overall, about 106 students affected, about 2% of our population that's coming to school. But I do want to point out something. Of those 96 quarantined for close contact, only 14 of those were due to a close contact at school. And we're still working to get some clarity on how we report this data. Is that overall reporting, the 96 number, or is it the number that has to do with school? So I'm showing you both so you have that data and the understanding there.
Does the state count that as the positivity rate being 10% because you quarantine or just by the actual positive? Because we'll never really know if the quarantine ones are positive or not unless they...
Yeah, the positivity rate comes from a test.
Just
a process test at a lab.
So our numbers are 10% positivity based off the test. So, or 10
That's 10 positive
10
people.
positive people by testing.
Students,
Correct.
these are
Yeah.
students
Yep.
only.
Yep. Yeah, and then 12 for staff,
And then 96 quarantined
but 14 of those are only by
by the,
what
from the
we've
school.
said.
close
are close
contacts.
contact by.
At school.
At the
Yep.
school. Yeah.
The most common scenario for us right now is a family member tests positive and then the household is quarantined.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
When you look at staff, again, you can see we're just over 1,000 staff. Quarantine due to close contact, we've got 21. Positive test result, we have 12. So a total of 33 effective, just a little over 3%.
When you
Again,
say,
this-
when you say staff, is that certified and
All
class-
staff,
All
yep,
staff.
all
okay.
staff.
Thank you.
About 7,000.
And kind of the same thing here, you can see the asterisks underneath the quarantine, 18 of those were related to being at work. So 3 were not in this case.
We've got about 54 that are quarantined from school or so, and that includes the positive tests. Is that so?
I think it was 32.
So 32 are quarantined that aren't tested, but we have, on top of that, we have the 12 here and the, what was the other number? 10 students that tested positive, so 22 there
Correct.
total. Okay.
So again, this is one we're watching closely too, to make sure that we have the staff available to provide the services that we need to provide. So at this point, I mean, as we talk about these numbers, I mean, if you are one of these people or associated with one of these numbers, obviously this is a big deal. But at the same time, when you're looking at where they are right now, can we still provide our educational services? Yes, we can. And that's, like I said, it's something that we continue to monitor and watch very closely.
You have that broken down by building too? I mean, not for yourself. I mean, you
Yes.
know where they're at.
Yes, yep. And by departments and yeah, exactly. Yep. And all of this kind of shows what we knew at the beginning, that COVID-19 is in our community. And because it's in our community, we knew it was going to be in our schools as well, and it is. And we're dealing with it. I do want to share that we'll be posting this data on our website so that people can see that. Also so that the media can see that, grab it as they need. And there are different data sources around the state now kind of popping up to track this kind of thing. And so we'll regularly update that, and there'll be a spot on our website. Of course, we're going to be close to protect everyone's privacy and anonymity and so on. So
Will it be this slide exactly?
no.
Okay, so
No,
you'll be able
it'll
to
be a
explain
table.
the asterisks for,
Yeah, we'll get an answer to how we should be reporting that.
yeah, because I think that's important to know that some of these are just home or other places of pleasure or whatever they do.
And, you know, if you're kind of watching closely and looking at that attendance data and looking at this, you can also then ask the question, wait a minute, how can we have that many kids, but our attendance was where it was? And for those students that are quarantined, they've transitioned over to online. So they're still logging in, they're still counted as.
Present.
So just in case that popped in, that's where that comes from.
And so that's a good question on, as far as the teachers then, are the teachers or staff that, I would say more teachers, are they still then going to an online teaching? The
It's-
ones
yeah.
that can, the ones that. And,
That's a good question. It's contextual. It's case by case.
yeah, okay.
So beyond this, there are other data points that we're watching and tracking and following as well. And here are a few of those. Each of these are things that are used for guidance in school decisions in other states across the country. Most states have a combination of something that is on this slide here. So we feel like they're worth keeping an eye on. Obviously, Iowa does not have any kind of guidance for us here, but there are things to take a look at.
new cases kind of goes without saying, and looking at the trends there, and also looking at the demographics and the age breakdowns and so on. We know as it sits right now, for our school age students in Iowa, it's right around hovering between 7 and 8% of those cases. And obviously it's been very well documented that the highest group right now are those 19 to 24 or 19 to 25-ish. So we'll continue to keep a close eye on that. Obviously, we, as a school, have representatives of every one of those groups as part of our community. Cases in the last 14 days is another one. It's kind of watching through that. And then probably the most common criteria used in other states is the cases per 100,000 in population over the last 14 days. And probably the second most common is the cases per 10,000, which is effectively the same thing, just move the decimal point. And so that's something that we take a look at. Hospitalizations. In the case of each one of these things, we know, because we're all following this all the time, every one of those data points has gone up since we've started school. And we just need to continue to watch those trends and see where they head. Supply chain and supplies themselves, that's something that I've been working with Kevin, who's working with Gary Haynes and the head custodians to make sure that we have the supplies on hand and in the queue so that we can continue to make sure that we're sanitizing and keeping our environment safe. And at this point, there are no. I put PPE on there, and that mostly really only applies to our nurses. The other protective equipment that we have is technically not defined as PPE, but at this point, again, we're in good shape there. But that's something that we need to make sure we keep an eye on as well. So I put this slide on there just because as we sit in Polk County and in the state of Iowa, and we see the numbers doing what they're doing, I think we all need to make sure that we continue to remind everybody what kind of things that we can do to do our part to slow the spread. It's not just a school thing; it's a full community, full state thing, and we all know these by heart by now. So obviously we're not making decisions tonight. That our next board meeting on the 17th, we will make some decisions on the instructional model and what we do moving forward. So we'll continue to monitor everything that I've just kind of gone through here on that slide. But I wanted to share that and make sure that you had the latest and updated numbers. I think that the final thing I would say is that we all want our kids back, all of our kids in school and safely. That's been our goal from the very beginning, and it continues to be our goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, some trepidation, I say. Any question or comments?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Dirk, and all of the staff. Every ounce of tears and effort and everything you all put into it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Jason Campbell said it best. I mean, all of this is a team effort across the entire district. I thank you guys as well.
I mean, it's not forever.
Right.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Mhm.
All right.
I motioned, as long as
Okay.
there's no
All those in
opposition.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.